Story 1. The Man at the Gas Station. I never thought working a night shift at a gas station would mess with my head this badly. It was supposed to be simple: stock shelves, run the register, sweep the floors, and wait until sunrise. Easy money for someone like me who didn't mind staying up late. But that night, I learned that ordinary places hide the worst things. And some strangers? They're not just strangers. The night started boring like usual. It was just after 11 p.m. when I clocked in. The hum of the fluorescent lights was the first thing I noticed, that faint buzzing that never stops. The cooler fan kicked on every few minutes, filling the store with this hollow mechanical drone. Out front, the neon sign blinked open 24 hours, but half the letters had burned out years ago, so it just read OEN 24 hours. That broken sign always made me uneasy, like it was warning me, something's missing. Most nights I kept myself sane with little routines. Stack gum packs, wipe down counters, count cigarette cartons, check the bathroom even though no one ever cleaned it properly. The monotony was comforting. But that night something was off. The first customer came in around midnight. A trucker, heavy boots, red cap, smelling of diesel. He barely looked at me, grabbed coffee, and left without a word. Normal. The second was a young couple. Girl in a hoodie, guy in a beanie, laughing about something on their phone. They bought snacks, teased each other, drove off. Normal. But the third wasn't normal at all. He came in at exactly 1:13 a.m. I remember the time because the clock above the counter ticked so loud it felt like it was carving it into my memory. The doorbell chimed. And in he walked. Tall. Way taller than me, maybe 6'5". Pale skin, almost gray under the buzzing lights. He wore a long dark coat even though it wasn't cold. His hair was stringy, oily, hanging into his face. And his eyes, God, his eyes, too wide, too still, like glass marbles. I gave my usual half-hearted greeting. Hey, what can I get you tonight? He didn't answer. Didn't even blink. He just walked slowly, too slowly, down the aisles. His coat brushed the racks, and I swear I heard the faintest sound, like nails dragging against metal, even though his hands weren't touching anything. I watched him on the convex mirror above the counter. You know the kind? Those round security mirrors that bend reality, showing you distorted reflections of the aisles. He didn't cast a reflection the way the others did. At first, I thought it was the angle. I leaned left, squinting. No, he was there in front of me, but in the mirror, his body blurred, stretched wrong like he was made of smoke. My stomach dropped. I tried to play it cool. Maybe it was just bad lighting. Maybe I was tired. But then he stopped. Not in front of the snacks. Not in front of the drinks. He stopped at the very back of the store where the employee's only door was. The one that led to the stockroom. He stared at it. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared. The hair on my arm stood up. Finally I cleared my throat. Sir? That area's not open to customers. Nothing. He didn't react. Then, slowly, his head turned, not his body, just his head, until he was looking straight at me. And that's when I realized his mouth was moving. But no sound came out. I should have called someone. My manager, the cops, anybody. But my phone was in my locker, and for some reason I felt like moving would make things worse. Like prey that doesn't want to startle the predator. I forced myself to look at the mirror again. And my blood turned cold. Because in the mirror, he wasn't looking at the back door anymore. He wasn't even standing still. He was standing right behind me. I spun around, nothing. The aisle was empty. But in the mirror, I could still see him, towering over me, head tilted, mouth silently moving. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Then, blink, he was gone. The mirror was empty. I stood there, shaking, trying to convince myself I was hallucinating. Maybe I'd had too much caffeine. Maybe I was sleep deprived. That's when the bathroom door creaked open. But no one had gone in there all night. I grabbed the heavy metal flashlight we kept under the counter and forced myself to check. Every step toward that bathroom felt like I was walking into my own grave. The door was cracked, shadows shifting inside. I pushed it open with the flashlight. The light flickered across the grimy sink, the cracked tiles, the stained urinal. Nothing. Empty. Then the stall door creaked. Slowly. I raised the flashlight, knuckles white. Pushed the stall open. Empty. I let out a shaky laugh. My nerves were just shot. I was scaring myself. That's when the lights in the whole store flickered. Buzz. Pop, darkness. Then after a heartbeat, flicker, they came back on. And he was standing behind the counter. Right where I had been. I don't remember dropping the flashlight, but I remember the sound it made when it hit the tile. He just stood there. Same glassy eyes. Same silent mouth, moving like he was whispering something only the dead could hear. I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream. Finally he lifted a hand. Slowly, deliberately. And pointed at me. The buzzing lights dimmed again like the power was draining from the room. The air turned ice cold, my breath visible. And then, just as suddenly, he was gone. The counter was empty. The lights hummed back to normal. I thought about running. But outside, it was nothing but darkness, miles of highway, and no cars in sight. So I did the stupidest thing imaginable. I stayed. I told myself it was just stress. That I'd imagined the whole thing. That if I could just make it until sunrise, everything would be fine. But the thing is, when the morning shift guy came in at 6 a.m., he gave me a weird look. "Man, you look like hell. Rough night." I forced a laugh, trying not to sound insane. "Yeah, just long." He walked behind the counter and froze. Why'd you pull out the old register?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" He pointed under the counter. There, sitting dusty and cracked, was a register we hadn't used in over a decade. And on its screen, glowing faintly green, were the words, "Welcome back." And that's when I realized he hadn't left the store. He was waiting for me to come back. Story 2, the elevator that didn't stop. I used to think staying late at the office was safe. Sure, the building was creepy after hours, but it wasn't like working at a gas station or being out on the streets. I mean, it's just cubicles, printers, glowing computer screens. Harmless, right? I was wrong. Because one night, the elevator showed me something I'll never forget. It was a Tuesday. I'd stayed behind to finish a project after everyone else had left. The office was silent except for the hum of the HVAC and the occasional click from my mouse. The city outside had gone quiet too, just distant headlights flashing across the window blinds. I finally shut my laptop at 11:47 p.m. My eyes burned from the screen. My shoulders ached from hunching. All I wanted was my bed. I packed up, shut off the desk lamp, and headed for the elevator. The building was 12 stories, but at night it felt like a tomb. The hallway stretched too far, too empty. The carpet muffled my footsteps, but every sound echoed anyway. When I pressed the elevator button, the light flickered once before glowing steady. The ding came. The doors slid open. And I froze. Because I was already standing inside. It was me. Same clothes, same tired face, same laptop bag slung across the same shoulder. But this version of me was smiling. Not just a casual smile. A too-wide grin that showed every tooth. He tilted his head like he'd been waiting for me. And then he spoke. But the words didn't match his lips. They came half a second too late, like bad dubbing in a foreign movie. "Going down?" My stomach flipped. My hands went cold. I took a step back, but the hallway behind me felt like it had stretched. Like the elevator was the only place left in the world. The other me reached out a hand. I swear his fingernails were darker. Almost black. I should have run. But instead I stepped inside. The doors closed behind me with a sharp clack. The air inside was heavy. Too heavy. Like I was breathing water. I kept my back pressed to the wall, refusing to meet his eyes. I tried to hit the lobby button, but none of the buttons lit up. Every single one was dead. And then the elevator started moving anyway. Not down. Not up. Sideways. I could feel it. The shift. The unnatural lurch in my stomach. The other me finally spoke again, his grin never fading. "You shouldn't work so late." I squeezed my eyes shut. This wasn't happening. I was exhausted. Hallucinating. When I opened them again, he was gone. The elevator was empty. For a split second, I almost laughed in relief. But then I noticed the mirror. Every elevator has one, right? That dull, stainless steel reflection. And in that mirror, he was still there. Standing behind me. Smiling. I pressed every button on the panel, desperate for anything to work. The lights flickered, the floor numbers glitched, 10, 4, 8, 12, 7, jumping randomly. The air turned colder. My breath fogged. The reflection leaned closer. His mouth moved, but again the voice lagged behind. "I could take your place, you know?" I slammed the emergency stop. The elevator screeched. Halted. The lights cut out. For a moment, pitch black. Then a faint red glow. Emergency lighting. And in that glow, his reflection wasn't grinning anymore. He was furious. His teeth bared like an animal. His fists pounded the mirror, but the glass didn't crack. The sound echoed in my skull. Bang. 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 And then, in the dark reflection, his hand reached through. I stumbled back, but there was nowhere to go. The cold fingers brushed my shirt. I felt the chill sink straight through my chest. I screamed. And then, ding. The doors opened. Bright lobby lights spilled in. Normal lights. Normal air. The security guard looked up from his desk, raising an eyebrow. Long night. I stumbled out, heart racing. I glanced back. The elevator was empty. The mirror spotless. But faintly, so faintly I thought I imagined it, my reflection smiled. The next morning, I told myself I'd dreamed it. Just exhaustion. Sleep deprivation. But when I checked my voicemail at work, there was a new message. No number. No timestamp. Just my own voice. Whispering. Going down? And that's when I realized, maybe I never made it out of that elevator at all. Story 3. The neighbor in the window. You ever live somewhere long enough that you stop really seeing the people around you? That was me. My apartment complex wasn't fancy, just one of those brick rectangles with peeling paint, thin walls, and rent that barely ever went up. The kind of place filled with night shift workers, students, and people who kept to themselves. I didn't know most of my neighbors' names. Just faces. Routine smiles. Little waves across the parking lot. That's why I can't explain what I saw. And why I can't explain why I waved back. It started normal. It was a Sunday evening, late summer, heat still radiating off the pavement. I was sitting at my tiny kitchen table eating instant noodles when I glanced out the window. Across the courtyard in the building opposite mine, a light flicked on. It was Mrs. Palmer's apartment. She lived alone, second floor, always kept plants in the window. We weren't close, but she was the type who waved at everyone. Grocery bags in her hands, trash in the chute, didn't matter. She always smiled and waved. And that's exactly what she did. She stood in her window, curtain half pulled back, and waved at me. I waved back automatically. Didn't think anything of it. Until the next morning when I saw the notice. Big white paper taped to the front door of the building. In memoriam, Ellen Palmer. She died 3 weeks earlier. Funeral already held. Neighbors invited to leave flowers by her door. I stood there staring at the notice, my heart thudding. I just waved at her last night. I saw her. Maybe someone else lived there now. A niece? A cousin? Maybe they looked like her. But no. The handwriting on the notice said, apartment sealed for inspection. Her place was supposed to be empty. That evening I couldn't stop myself. I sat at my table again, lights off, watching her window. Nothing. Just her plants, half wilted now without her care. I almost laughed at myself. Stress. Bad memory. I'd probably imagined the whole thing. And then at exactly 9:12 p.m. the light flicked on. And there she was. Mrs. Palmer. Same pale blue cardigan. Same short white hair. Same wave. This time I didn't wave back. I just stared, frozen. Her smile didn't falter. Her hand moved slower though. Almost mechanical, like she was struggling to remember the motion. I grabbed my phone, snapping a picture. But when I looked at it, the window was dark. Empty. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I asked around. The lady downstairs swore she saw movers clearing out Palmer's furniture the week before. The guy next door said the place was locked and sealed. So why did I see her? Why was she waving? By the third night I couldn't resist. Curiosity eats you alive in situations like this. At 9:12 sharp the light clicked on again. But this time, her wave was different. Instead of side to side, her hand was curling, beckoning, like she wanted me to come over. My chest tightened. My stomach churned. I told myself no. That would be insane. But my legs carried me anyway. I crossed the courtyard, climbed the cracked steps, and stopped outside her door. Sure enough, a strip of city tape crisscrossed the frame, sealed by order of housing authority. I leaned in, pressing my ear to the wood. Silence. Then, scratching. Slow, steady scratching right on the other side. I bolted back to my apartment, slammed the door, locked it. From my window I could see hers again, and she was still there. Only now, she wasn't smiling. Her hand pressed flat against the glass, leaving smears behind, and her head tilted. Too far. Bones shouldn't bend like that. The following day, I asked the landlord if anyone had access to her place. He frowned. No. Keys are locked up until the inspection. So no one's been inside? I pressed. Not since the movers cleared her stuff. Why? I didn't answer. Because how do you tell someone their dead tenant is waving from her window every night? That evening I covered my blinds. Tried to ignore the clock. But when it hit 9:12 I couldn't help it. I peeked. The window glowed again. But this time it wasn't just her. Something else was behind her. A shadow. Taller. Leaner. Its hands resting on her shoulders like it was puppeteering her. And she waved. Her eyes glassy. Her lips trembling. Like she wasn't waving to me. She was warning me. I yanked the blinds shut, heart hammering. That night, I dreamed I was in her apartment. The walls pulsed like they were alive. Her plants were rotting, dripping black sap. And in the middle of it all, she sat in her chair, skin gray, eyes wide, whispering one phrase over and over. It lives here now. I woke up drenched in sweat. The next morning when I went outside, there was a new notice taped to the building. Inspection rescheduled. Delay due to structural damage. I looked up. Her window was cracked. Like something had pressed against the glass from the inside. That night I didn't look. Didn't peek. Didn't move. But at 9:12 I heard it anyway. Tap, tap, tap. On my own window. I froze. Because I live on the 3rd floor. And that's when I realized she wasn't the one trying to get in. Story 4, buried things. I always thought my backyard was safe. It was boring, really. A patch of grass, a chain link fence, and neighbors who barely waved at each other. A place for weekend barbecues and mowing the lawn every Saturday morning. But safety is an illusion. And sometimes the ground beneath your feet hides secrets you never should have found. It was late September, one of those crisp mornings where the air feels sharper than usual. I slipped on my headphones, started the mower, and began my usual pattern. Stripes across the yard, neat rows, the kind of mindless routine that let me zone out. Then halfway through, the mower lurched. The blade screamed against something buried. The whole machine shuddered in my hands. I killed the engine and crouched down. The grass was torn up, dirt exposed. Something white poked through the soil. I thought it was just trash at first, maybe a grocery bag. But when I pulled it loose, I felt the weight inside. A heavy knot twisted in my gut, because inside that bag were tiny shoes, and bones small enough to fit in my palm. I dropped it instantly, stumbling back. My chest felt tight. My brain scrambled for logic. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe someone buried a pet. But no, those were human. The truth settled like a stone in my throat. Someone had buried a child in my backyard. I ran inside, shaking, grabbed my phone and dialed 911. But as I lifted it to my ear, the line went dead. No dial tone. Just silence. The lights flickered. And then I heard it. From the yard. A voice. High-pitched. Fragile. Don't tell. My stomach flipped. I forced myself back to the window. The bag was gone. The dirt was smoothed over like nothing had ever been dug up. But my mower was still sitting there. Its blade smeared with something dark. The next day I told myself I'd imagined it, that I'd hit a root and my brain spun it into something else. Until the dream started. Every night I saw children standing at the foot of my bed. Their faces pale. Their eyes hollow. Their hands reaching out. Always whispering the same phrase. Don't tell. I stopped mowing the lawn. Stopped going out back entirely. But the grass kept growing. Taller. Wilder. Until one night I heard it. The hum of my mower. Running. By itself. I crept to the window. And froze. Because in the moonlight the mower was moving. Slowly, deliberately. Cutting neat rows across the grass. And behind it, walked a shadow. Tall. Thin. Pushing the handle with long bony hands. I stayed locked in the house, lights off, watching in terror. When the mower finally stopped, the yard looked perfect. Cleaner than I'd ever cut it. But in the center of the lawn there was something new. A mound of fresh dirt. Like a grave. The next morning it was still there. I almost called the police again. But what would I say? That my lawn mower was possessed? That bones vanished overnight? Instead I grabbed a shovel. I had to know. I dug into that mound, sweat dripping, hands shaking. And what I pulled out wasn't bones. It was photographs. Of me. Sleeping in my bed. Eating at my table. Sitting at my desk. Dozens of them. Taken from inside my house. I dropped the shovel and bolted inside. Every door was locked. Every window shut. But when I checked my bedroom, something was waiting. On the pillow. The tiny shoes. Covered in dirt. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, every light blazing, knife clutched in my hand. At 3:17 a.m. I heard it again. The mower. I looked outside. The shadow was back. This time it wasn't mowing the grass. It was digging. Right next to the fresh mound. And as the dirt flew, I realized something that turned my blood to ice. The hole it was digging wasn't for a child. It was the size of an adult. My size. You've heard the stories. A gas station where the mirrors lie. An elevator that doesn't stop where it should. A neighbor who waves long after death. And a backyard that buries more than soil. Different places. Different nights. Different people. But the same truth. Evil doesn't live in old legends or haunted castles. It doesn't wait in graveyards or abandoned asylums. It hides in the ordinary. In the stores we shop in. In the offices where we work. In the windows we glance at. In the lawns we mow. And sometimes, it hides in us. So tonight, when you lock your doors, when you draw your blinds, when you tell yourself you're safe, remember, the scariest monsters aren't the ones we imagine. They're the ones standing right beside us, smiling. Because the real horror? It's never somewhere else. It's already here.